What if I told you that Jake Paul might actually step into the ring with Anthony Joshua, and that it's not just a publicity stunt, but something truly in motion for early 2026? You'd probably laugh, right? But this isn't a joke anymore. This is real. Because Jake Paul isn't just calling out Joshua on social media, he's getting responses. The kind that come with contracts, venues, and money that makes the world stop and stare. The kind of talk that involves people like Eddie Hearn, Saudi boxing royalty, and even Tyson Fury throwing down a £1 million bet. So how did we get here? How did a Disney star turned YouTuber suddenly end up one negotiation away from fighting a former unified heavyweight champion of the world? It all started with DMs. Jake Paul claims he and Anthony Joshua have been messaging back and forth, not just for hype, but about actually making the fight happen. And then, after knocking out Julio César Chávez Jr., Paul doubled down in public, saying outright that Anthony Joshua is the man he wants next. Not in 5 years, not as a fantasy matchup, he's pushing for January 2026. And when reporters pressed him about it, Jake didn't flinch. He said the fight looks very likely. His manager, Nakisa Bidarian, confirmed that real talks have started. Not vague plans, legit discussions with Joshua's team. Jake called it biblical, as in David versus Goliath. What makes this even crazier? The Saudis are backing it. Turkey Alalshik, the same Saudi power broker who helped organize some of the biggest fights in recent boxing history, is reportedly eager to host it. That alone changes everything. We're not talking about a fantasy anymore. Saudi Arabia, Wembley, Las Vegas, venues are being looked at as we speak. A Paul versus Joshua fight could headline an international mega event with $500 million in potential revenue. In boxing, money talks louder than anything, and right now the money says this fight is not only possible, it's probable. But here's the twist, Joshua's camp isn't laughing either. They're talking seriously. Eddie Hearn, Joshua's longtime promoter, has openly confirmed negotiations are underway. And though he's cautious, he's not dismissing it. In fact, Hearn said the fight could absolutely happen if Jake is serious. He even acknowledged that AJ would be ready to return to the ring by late 2025 following elbow surgery. That timing matches perfectly with Jake's desired date. As Hearn put it, we can't just sit around waiting for Jake Paul, but if it's real, we're in. Of course, there's the obvious elephant in the room, size and skill. Jake Paul, despite being undefeated against several past their prime names and MMA fighters, is not a heavyweight champion. He walks around at about 210 to 215 pounds. Joshua is a sculpted 250 with terrifying knockout power and Olympic pedigree. This isn't just a weight class difference, it's a different universe. Yet Jake's team insists that he's ready for that leap. Bidarian said Jake's new physique, experience with Tyson, and rising ring IQ are enough to make it viable. He says size-wise, we can get comfortable with it. But not everyone agrees. Joshua's trainer, Ben Davison, was blunt. I don't like that fight at all. He didn't hide his discomfort with the idea. It's not that he doesn't believe AJ would win, it's that the fight might not be worth the risk or the circus that could come with it. Joshua's legacy, after all, is still very much in play. He recently demolished Francis Ngannou and is eyeing redemption and world titles, not internet spectacles. So if this fight does happen, it could mean AJ is walking away from serious legacy bouts to chase a massive payday. And that brings us to the skeptics, a long list of them. Boxing purists have slammed the idea as a disgrace. George Groves, former world champion, said Joshua should stick to real contenders and avoid spectacle fights. Derek Chisara warned the WBC not to hand Jake Paul a ranking if this bout happens, calling it disrespectful to real fighters. Even Joe Rogan jumped in, mocking the idea that Jake needs until 2026. Why not now? He laughed. What's he doing, bulking up for 2 years on steroids? The criticism is loud. But the louder the criticism, the more attention the fight gets. Tyson Fury, on the other hand, sees it differently. In one of the wildest takes yet, Fury declared this matchup a real 50-by-50 fight and said he'd bet £1 million on Jake Paul to knock out Anthony Joshua. That alone sent shockwaves through the community. Many dismissed it as a joke, but Tyson's never been one to waste words when money's on the line. Jake Paul responded immediately, saying he'd take the bet and raise it 10 million pounds on himself. Just like that, this circus turned into a high-stakes drama. And that's exactly what keeps the public hooked. But let's be real, Jake Paul's path here hasn't been through ranked fighters. He lost to Tommy Fury, the only actual boxer he's fought. Everyone else? Retired, past prime, or non-boxers. Yet here he is, knocking on the door of one of the greatest heavyweights of the last decade. Why? Because Jake Paul knows how to market. He knows how to sell a narrative. And right now, that narrative is about taking down giants and flipping boxing on its head. He even said on his podcast that people don't want to see him win, they just want to see him lose. That's why they'll pay. That's why they'll watch. And don't forget, the stakes are weirdly mutual. For Jake, this is the ultimate validation. For Joshua, it's a huge risk, one that could make him look like a bully or a businessman, depending on how it ends. If he wins, no one gives him credit. If he loses, his legacy could crumble. And that's the paradox. The fight offers more reward for Jake than it does for AJ. But the money? It's life-changing for both. Some argue Joshua should use Paul as a tune-up fight before facing someone like Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. Others say it's not worth the ridicule. But in a sport driven by spectacle, emotion, and dollar signs, this is the kind of matchup that happens whether fans like it or not. And fans are clicking. The online engagement for this proposed fight has outperformed most active championship bouts. The mere idea of Paul versus Joshua is doing more traffic than sanctioned world title events. So how real is it? Very real. According to multiple reports, there's serious momentum. Venues are being scouted. Sponsors are circling. Broadcasters are talking. The Saudis are all in. Jake Paul says he's bulking, training, and preparing for war. Anthony Joshua's team, though skeptical, has not said no. And the boxing world? Divided, excited, confused, exactly where Jake Paul likes them. And now there's even more buzz. Tyson Fury's retired again, but nobody buys it. There's chatter of Fury versus Usyk 3, but fan interest is fading fast. That leaves a vacuum at heavyweight, and Jake Paul, believe it or not, is right in the middle of it. His camp claims they're not just chasing views, they want a ranking. The WBC might even give it to him. That has veterans like Derek Chisora and Tony Bellew fuming, saying the sport is being sold for clicks. But clicks mean cash. And in boxing today, cash equals credibility. Let's not forget the numbers. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou broke viewing records. Paul's fight with Mike Tyson, though postponed, was picked up by Netflix. The crossover model works. Whether you like it or not, it sells. And Jake Paul knows it. He's already calling himself a breath of fresh air for boxing. He says he brings in Gen Z, new fans, and a global reach that traditional fighters can't touch. He says he's not just a fighter, he's a movement. So what happens next? If both camps agree by the end of 2025, expect a full promotional campaign with Netflix, Amazon, or DAZN vying for streaming rights. Expect the Saudis to build a custom arena. Expect undercards stacked with spectacle. And expect a fight that feels more like a Hollywood event than a boxing match. Because that's exactly what it is. Hollywood with gloves. Is this fight good for boxing? That depends on how you define good. If it's about honor, tradition, and skill, probably not. But if it's about eyeballs, headlines, and big checks, this might be the biggest win boxing's seen in years. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Jake Paul is no longer just that YouTuber. He's a marketing machine. And Anthony Joshua, he might just be the next piece of the puzzle. So ask yourself, is this the beginning of boxing's next era or the final punchline? Because one way or another, January 2026 might be the month everything changes.